My name is Chloe. I'm 28 years old, and the smell of fresh paint and cardboard boxes still makes my stomach clench. I was standing in the hollowed-out shell of my childhood living room when my father, David, a quiet man of 60, handed me an envelope. He didn't meet my eyes. "It's done," he said, his voice raspy. "The house is sold. Your debts are paid." The words hit me harder than a physical blow, sucking all the air from my lungs. But I had no idea the real heartbreak was yet to come, hidden in the pages of an old leather-bound book. It all started with a dream, as these things so often do. My dream was called The Daily Grind, a cozy, independent coffee shop with worn wooden floors, mismatched armchairs, and the rich smell of freshly roasted beans. For 2 years, it was my entire world. I poured every cent of my savings into it, then took out business loans I was so sure I could pay back. In my mind, I was building a future, a legacy. In reality, I was building a cage of debt. A bigger chain coffee shop opened 2 blocks away, and it was like a slow, painful drain. My regulars became sometimes visitors, and then just familiar faces I saw walking past my window with a corporate cup in their hand. The red-stamped past due notices started as a trickle, then became a flood. I started using my personal credit cards to pay suppliers, telling myself it was temporary. Soon, I was drowning. My best friend, Sarah, who is also 28, was the only one who knew the full extent of the disaster. We met for what I pretended was a casual lunch, but she could see the panic behind my eyes. "You haven't been sleeping, have you?" she asked, pushing a napkin toward me. I just shook my head, the lump in my throat too big to speak. She was a practical accountant, the complete opposite of my dreamy self. "Chloe, the numbers aren't working. You have to close up shop before they take everything." I knew she was right, but admitting it felt like admitting I was a complete failure. "What about the loans, Sarah? I'm on the hook for all of it. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars." She sighed, her expression softening. "You have to tell your dad," she said gently. A cold dread washed over me. "No, absolutely not. He thinks I'm a success. He brags about his daughter, the business owner. Telling him the truth would crush him." My father was a retired carpenter, a man who believed in hard work, paying your bills on time, and providing for your family. He had worked his fingers to the bone his whole life to give me a stable, worry-free childhood, especially after my mom passed away when I was 16. The thought of telling him I had squandered that opportunity was unbearable. So I didn't. I tried to handle it myself. I took on a second job, bartending at night, running on caffeine and pure fear. I sold my car and started taking the bus. I ate instant noodles for dinner and lied to my dad that I was too busy at the shop to come over. Every phone call from an unknown number made my heart pound. The letters from collection agencies became more aggressive. The shame was a physical weight pressing down on me every second of every day. The coffee shop, my dream, was now a source of constant anxiety. Finally, the eviction notice was posted on the door. It was over. The failure was no longer a secret fear. It was a public fact. That night, I drove the bus to my childhood home, the final foreclosure warning for my personal loans clutched in my hand. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't carry it alone. I found my dad in the kitchen, carefully repairing the leg of an old wooden chair. The house was a museum of his life's work. He'd built the bookshelves in the living room, the beautiful oak table we were sitting at, and the porch swing where my mom used to read. Every corner held a memory. I sat down, and the tears I'd been holding back for months finally came. I couldn't even form words, just ugly, gut-wrenching sobs. He stopped his work, came over, and just put a hand on my shoulder, waiting. I pushed the crumpled letters across the table. He picked them up, his brow furrowed as he read. I braced myself for the explosion, for the disappointment, for the "I told you so," but it never came. He read each letter carefully, his expression unreadable. When he was done, he folded them neatly, looked at me with eyes that were tired but clear, and said, "Okay, we'll fix this." No anger, no judgment, just a promise. In that moment, his quiet strength broke my heart more than any yelling ever could have. In the weeks that followed, a strange calm settled over him. He made phone calls, met with people from the bank, and told me not to worry. I assumed he was cashing in his retirement fund or taking out a loan against the house. I felt sick with guilt, but also a sliver of relief. Then came the day he told me. He had asked me to come over to help with some packing. I walked in and saw boxes everywhere. "Are you reorganizing?" I asked, confused. That's when he handed me the envelope and my world tilted on its axis. "The house is sold. Your debts are paid." He said it so simply, as if he were telling me the weather. The house, not a loan against it, sold, gone. The place where I grew up, where every memory of my mother lived. He had erased his entire life's biggest asset from my mistake. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream, to cry, to rewind time, but all I could do was stare at him, this quiet man who had just sacrificed everything for me without a single word of complaint. The next few days were a blur of packing up a lifetime of memories. Each object we wrapped in paper felt like a piece of our family history being put away forever. I was numb, just going through the motions. On the last day, my dad asked me to clear out the small chest in the attic. It was an old wooden box where he kept photos and trinkets. As I lifted a stack of faded pictures of my mom, my fingers brushed against something hard. It was a dark leather diary. I recognized my mother's elegant cursive on the inside cover, "For David, to hold our story." But as I flipped through, the handwriting changed to my father's blocky workmanlike script. He had continued it after she was gone. My hands trembled as I sat down on the dusty floorboards and began to read. His entries were short, simple, and punched a hole straight through my heart. There was one from the day I was born. "Mary gave me a daughter today, Chloe. She has a grip like a vice and a cry that could shake the windows. I looked at her and understood my life's purpose in a single second. Protect her, always." Another from a few days after my mom's funeral. "The house is so quiet, too quiet. Chloe tries to be strong for me, but I see her crying when she thinks I'm not looking. She has her mother's heart. I have to be a father and a mother now. I cannot fail her." I flipped through years of entries, seeing my life through his eyes. My first day of school, my high school graduation, all marked with short, proud notes. Then I found the entry from the day I opened the coffee shop. Chloe's grand opening. She was glowing. So much fire, so much passion. Her mother would have been bursting with pride. I worry, of course. This world can be cruel to dreamers, but she has to fly on her own. I'll always be her safety net. My tears were dripping onto the fragile pages now. I turned to the last few entries. They were from the night I confessed everything to him. "Chloe came home tonight. She's been carrying the world on her shoulders and finally let it go. My heart breaks to see her in so much pain. The bank, the loans, it is all just paper. She thinks she failed, but she tried. She chased a dream. How can that be a failure?" And then the final entry dated the day he put the house on the market. "I signed the papers today." The realtor talked about market value and closing costs. All I could think about was the pencil marks on the kitchen door frame marking Chloe's height each year. I thought about Mary planting the rose bushes out front. This house was never about the wood and nails. It was about building a safe place for our family. Now its job is done. Its value isn't in the market. It's in giving my daughter her future back. It's the last thing I have of Mary's, and I'm using it to protect her child. She would want this. It's not a sacrifice. It's just love. I couldn't read anymore. I closed the diary and just sobbed right there in the dusty attic. All this time I was consumed by my shame, my failure. I saw the sale of the house as a monument to my screw-up, but for him, it wasn't about my failure at all. It was about his love. It was the ultimate act of protection, the fulfillment of a promise he'd made to my mother and to me on the day I was born. I went downstairs, clutching the diary to my chest. He was in the empty living room, staring out the window. He turned as I entered and he saw the book in my hands and the look on my face. He didn't need an explanation. I walked over to him, and for the first time in my adult life, I hugged him like I was a little girl again. "I'm so sorry, Dad," I choked out. He just held me tighter. "There's nothing to be sorry for, kiddo," he whispered, his own voice thick with emotion. "We're a team." We stood there for a long time in the middle of the empty room, not a father and a daughter, but just two people holding each other up. That day changed everything. The debt was gone, yes, but more importantly, the guilt was replaced by a profound sense of purpose. I got a stable job, worked hard, and saved every penny I could. A year later, I had enough for a down payment on a small, clean 2-bedroom condo. My father was living in a small rental apartment, and I hated it. When the condo was ready, I went to his apartment. "I have a surprise for you," I said, and drove him to the new place. I led him to the second bedroom. "This is your room, Dad." He looked at me, his eyes wide. "Chloe, I can't." "You can and you will," I interrupted gently. "You spent your whole life making a home for me. It's my turn to make one for us. We're a team, remember?" This time, it was his turn to cry. I learned that a home isn't the walls that surround you, but the people who would tear them down without a second thought to keep you safe. My father's love wasn't in his words, it was in his actions, written not just in a secret diary, but in the very fabric of my life. His sacrifice didn't just pay my debts, it gave me back my life, and it gave me back my dad. What's the biggest sacrifice someone has ever made for you? Until the next story.